The title is about numerology and the numerological code of marriage, husband, wife, divorce, all of those things that have to do with marriage, right? So I decided to do this because I've been getting, well, I'll just first say that my whole thing is getting to the root of things. Yes. It's getting to the root of things, the origin, um, cracking the code. I'm all about that, right? And so understanding that everything is rooted in that, like this whole thing, this matrix, the simulation, everything is coded. Even your body is a code. If you look at your organs, they kind of look like sigils. And the word organ, we think of music, right? And music is symbolized by what? Symbols. So did I say music is symbolized by symbols? Represented as symbols. Yeah. So anyway, everything is coded, everything is shrouded in occultism. Like we're only getting the surface of things. And so we look at things from, just like that whole like surface basic view of things, the perception of things, right? And so when we always talk about in the occult world, we always talk about bringing down the veil, removing the veil. And one of the things that I realized in this work, because I'm a practitioner of the occult, and one of the things that I realized doing this is really the only veil is the veil that we have over ourselves. I mean, we always talk about, yeah, the elite and they do this and they hide everything from us and all of these things. But the secret to that is they that we're always hearing about, the elite and all of that, these elusive people that we never really see. Um, and then those that we do, the elite families and all that, right? That all have their hands in this whole thing. But one of the things that they are commissioned to do is tell the truth. Now, how they decide to reveal it is up to them. And so it's up to us to decipher it. And so I've always been big on deciphering things, cracking the codes, all of these things. Like one of the things that I talk about a lot when I'm discussing the relationship dynamics between men and women, I always talk about how men speak in codes. So it's very important as a woman that you listen intently to what a man is saying to you, in be it in a relationship, an interpersonal relationship, business relationship, however you're interacting with him, it's so important that you listen to the way he's speaking to you and the words that he uses because they speak in codes, right? And the way he's talking to his homies is not the same way he's talking to you. And of course, we know that on the surface. Of course, you're a woman, so he's not going to talk to you the same way. But I'm saying I'm speaking in that as far as the coded language that they speak. And I really want to I really want to think of an example, but right now I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm sure one will come to me as I go on. But they definitely speak in a coded language. And I also talk about how we are operating in there's the connotative of language and then there's the denotative of language, right? And I talked about this last week, how both of us, what we're doing is we're operating in the denotative and the connotative. It's just the denotative is the hidden part of us. That's why it's so important to study etymology so you can get the root meaning and the origin of that word. Because we always say words cast spells, right? And so I bring all these things together. So with numerology, astrology, etymology, all of these things go together. They all help to decipher the code. So all of that to say, I was really getting into the numerology of those particular systems of marriage and even divorce, and then the actual um, the the code behind the word marriage, husband, wife, and divorce, right? So you know when we're doing numerology, if you're familiar with it, when we're doing numerology, we take every letter has a corresponding number in the alphabet. And you always go from 1 to 9 and then you start back up again. And we know we have 26 letters in the alphabet. So you go 1 through 9 and then you start 1 through 9 again. And so with each letter having a corresponding number, we can break down first we can break down the word marriage. So when I did that, once I added all the letters to the corresponding numbers, I added everything up. And once I condensed it all the way down to one number, because that's what you do. You add up all the numbers and then you add it together and you condense it down to that one number. So the word marriage, it actually adds all the way up to, it's condensed down to the number 9. Now, in numerology, 9 means it's the ending of something. It also means access. It also means gate and then divine. So now if we look at the number 9, we know women, the number 9 represents the divine feminine, right? It's the word 9 is literally in the word. So when we look at that and we think about if we look at the gate, right? So I always say that women are the gatekeepers of souls. And the word marriage itself, M-A-R-M-A, is ma. So it's a feminine principle in and of itself. And so and then once you break it down, like I said, it adds up to 9, right? It condenses down to the number 9. So women are the gatekeepers. When you get married, what do? You have children, right? So you're the gatekeeper of the souls. You are the only way that these souls are going to get here, right? So, and then there's endings. So we look at when things end. If we look at, let's just take 9/11, right? Um, Always keep in mind that major events in the world that take place with these government entities and these dignitaries and assassinations and transfer of wealth and all, they always take place during a certain date. Everything is ran by numerology. And so when we look at 9/11, what was that? That was like the ending. These people, first of all, we can just look at how many people lost their lives to that. And then we also look at the gate. So something opened up when that took place, because we have to always remember when there's a sacrifice of souls, that is the opening of something. It's not just the ending, it's also the opening. You know, and when you get heavily into ancient occult practices, what was used to pull on energy and to open up the gates, right? A sacrifice had to be made. And a lot of times it was human sacrifice. So when we look at the number 9, as we look at it as a gatekeeper, a gate opener, right? An ending, we're ending something, and then we're also beginning something, right? So the number 9 representing the feminine energy, the feminine is always going through a death and a rebirth. So that's why number 9 is corresponds to the feminine energy, because as I said before, there's always an ending, but there's also a beginning, right? So with that 9/11 thing, there was an ending and then there was a beginning. They had to open up the gate to bring in and usher in whatever they wanted to, because this is what the so-called powerful people do. They're always doing these sacrifices and having these events and stuff, because what they're doing is they're ending one system and they're opening up another one, and they need to create that ritual in order to do it. So when we get back into um the concept of marriage, when we're looking at, we bringing these two people together, this man and this woman together, and they are creating like I said, the wife gets pregnant, right? So now she's opening up the gate for inheritance, right? But if she and that man aren't on that mindset, then you're opening the gate for anything to take place, right? And then when we look at endings, when people end their marriages for whatever reason, right? You file for divorce, whatever. So you're ending that union. And then Also, when we get into access, access is also good because when you have access to something, again, that takes us back to opening the gate. I'm opening the gate now, so now you have access. So access to her womb, right? Access to the inheritance that the two of you are going to create together. You are accessing her energy in her womb in order to do that. Everything has to happen through the feminine, right? We are the womb. We carry the wombs. We are connected to source. We're the gatekeepers. We're the gatekeepers of souls. Nothing comes here except through us. And even if we're not talking about birthing actual physical children, women are always birthing. I talked about this last week. We're always birthing something because we have the womb. The womb is connected to our minds. So we're always birthing. And so when we get married, we are giving this man access to our wombs, not just the ones here, but the ones up here, right? And so you're supposed to come together and create something magical and beautiful and an empire and all of these things. That's what marriage is supposed to be for. That's why marriage was for the elites. Marriage was a rich man's game. It wasn't for the poors, right? Because the poorest had nothing. But with the patriarchal structure, every man had to have a woman. So every man gets a woman and a chicken in the pot, right? So but again, marriage is that's why divine. It's supposed to be a divine union, but most of the times it's not. Most people are getting married out of survival mode. There's nothing divine about that. But you're still doing it, so she is still offering access to her womb, right? So now now let's get into the word wife. So that breaks down to the number 7, right? So now what's the Bible verse of a man who finds a wife finds a good thing? I was one of these non-Bible reading Christians, so don't even get me started. But I do know about that verse. When he gets a wife, when he finds a wife, he finds a good thing. And this goes back to what I was talking about probably months ago when I was talking about how you have to embody that. Yes, Casey. Yeah, child. Let me tell you. When I said I was one of them non-Bible reading Christians, that's what I was, and I grew up in it, right? Like all my uncles was preachers, all the ladies, the aunties in the family, they're evangelists, all of that. I mean, I was like insulated in it, right? But yeah. So when we're getting into wife, we're getting to the number 7, and 7 represents completion, but it also represents wisdom, right? And the feminine is wisdom. Okay. So we have marriage and we have wife. So you take those two, the man that you as a woman are allowing yourself to have access to, he should be in his divine masculine and feminine. He should have that masculine and that feminine properly integrated in order to be able to have access to you so the two of you can create whatever beautiful life you want to create. But like I said, most people are not on that. Most men are not on that. They have such a problem with a woman actually being in her divinity because when she's really truly operating in her divinity, she's not going to deal with most dudes. She's most likely going to be by herself or unless she deals with women. But that's another day. But yeah, so they actually have a problem with a woman operating in her divinity. So, but the other part of wife, the other word that corresponds to it is ghost. So, this brings me to marrying within this construct, how when women become wives, they become a ghost of who they were. She no longer exists. Now, are we supposed to grow and evolve? Absolutely. Right? Are you the same woman you was when you married him at 28 and now you're 38? No, you're going to evolve. You're supposed to change. But when we say ghost, that is a ghost of who she is. Like I always say that most of the times when women get married, they take who they are at their core, whoever she is, they take her and they sit her on the shelf so they can perform the role of wife and mother. Because most women are doing it's performative. Even motherhood is performative. You have to embody motherhood is a calling. You have to embody that. What I'm seeing is that for the most part, a lot of women don't embody it. Right? They're just doing it because they got a womb. Oh, I'm supposed to have babies. Okay. So With that being said, she becomes a ghost of her former self. Instead of her having done that work on herself and integrating that shadow, because when we think of ghost, of course, we think of, an actual ghost. So when we're thinking about ghosts, we're thinking about movies with, spookiness and all of that stuff. That's all in the realm of the shadow. So she becomes a ghost of herself because she hasn't done the work on herself. So she hasn't properly integrated that shadow. So the person that she was is the person that she is now is the performative wife. Right. So that's why a lot of times the women, when they get married, like their friends will say, you're not the same person you were. You used to like to have fun. You used to do this. We go out to lunch and we do brunch, blah, blah. You don't do any of those things anymore. What happened? I remember, who said this to me? This was so long ago. I can't remember if it was a cousin, I think. But she said to me, we used to have so much fun. She said, but it's like you're not the same person you were when we got married. I mean, when you got married, this was a long time ago when she said this. But when I was doing this, it brought back that memory. And sometimes people are saying that because they want you to stay the same. They don't want you to grow, right? But then sometimes they're saying it because there was like this part of you, because we all have that core part of who we are no matter what we do, right? We have those core values and all of these things, right? And so, if there's certain things about yourself, like I've always loved to travel and go out and do things. Well, I stopped doing all of that. And so when she said that, that's where that was coming from. What happened to the cousin who, we used to go do this, or we used to go here and into these social events and all that stuff. Obviously, certain things you're not going to still be able to do once you get married and start having children. Your life changes tremendously. But if there's just certain core things about yourself, things that you love about yourself, right? And you kind of put that on the shelf. And so when she said that to me, that's what she was talking about. They tell us in scripture that wife is in the position of the Holy Ghost, is father. Yes. And it's so funny you said that, because when I was thinking that, when I was talking about ghosts, I thought about that. I thought about Holy Ghost. That's funny. I'm glad you brought that up. And so and the thing of it is, it's still about reframing. We always have to remember we can reframe things, right? We don't have to look at everything as being so negative, or like when I say she becomes a ghost of herself, right? But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. But the thing of it is, you have to look at things for what they are, right? And then you reframe it to make it fit your life. Like that's what we're supposed to do. If we are the creators, right? We're supposed to create it. We're supposed to create the life that we want. And so when we get the basic understanding of things, it's great. It's like, okay, that's what this means, right? This resonates with me, or this doesn't resonate with me, but I like this. But what I want to do is I want to reframe it. I have a client right now who, I don't want to get into her personal business, but there's something that she was telling me about, a way that she was operating for so long. And when she explained to me that type of behavior, I said, wait a second, that's your cunning. You need to reframe that. I am all about, yes, yes, I'm with the reframe. Yes. So I told her that is her cunning and we're going to pull that out. Right. So, and then also, like I mentioned, divinity, of course, we get into divine time. Right. So, it's so funny. We can look at that in so many different ways. Cause I know, in growing up religious, they say God may not come when you want him to, but he always comes on time. Right. So then we get into the whole divine timing. And so when relating that to the wife, that is okay, let's break that down to just like the basic everyday domestic stuff, right? And these small miracles we have to perform as mothers and as wives, right? If a husband is really about that, as far as the two of you really coming together to create something wonderful, a wonderful life of inheritance and wealth and travel and beauty and just all of that, then he's going to know that his wife has to be operating in her divinity, right? So she can so there could be some divine timing taking place, right? Oh, just in herself being who she is that divine timing. It's like I said before, when you are having to perform these miracles for your children, right? And just when you think, I mean, I'm sure we can all have this experience. Just when we thought, dang, am I gonna be able to do this? Is this gonna happen? Here come mama. And she make that shit happen. I know I make shit happen for my children all the time. So, I liken it to that, even though it says wife, but I'm most likely if you're a wife, you're eventually gonna be a mother. So I kind of tie those things in together. Um, so then when we get into the word husband, right? Now that condenses all the way down to the number 6. And in numerology, 6 means we have the word seductress. Now, seductress obviously is a woman, but let me break this down. Let me just say this real quick. I don't know how y'all gonna feel me on this. But men, before they're boys, before they're baby boys, they're they're females first. So someone said to me recently that men are basically women. Now, if we get into the occult knowledge, I don't know if anybody on here is familiar with Bobby Hemmett, but he did an excellent breakdown of this whole thing. And he talks about how men are degenerate women. Okay. And it's not to be saying that as a bad thing. It's just that they are missing certain things because they have that Y chromosome. There's a part missing, right? And so stay with me on this one because it sounded a little. Stay with me. So, so because they have those aspects of their genetics missing, and they start off as all fetuses start off female. Something takes place within the womb. It's called the SRY gene. Something takes place within that womb and it ends up becoming a male child. That is the power of the womb. That is the power of the creation that we hold within our wombs as women, right? So when I saw it meant seductress, I was like, okay, now how can I play around with this? Because a husband is usually a man. But if it breaks down to number 6 and one of the words that corresponds with that is seductress, I was like, how do we do that? Like, how do I do that? So it doesn't have to be seductress. It could just be somebody who seduces. But when we think of seduce, we automatically think of women, a beautiful woman, mysterious woman seducing a man, right? But men seduce women all the time, right? I mean, this is how they get us. They seduce us, right? So, and then it also breaks down to the word beauty. But here's another one, illusion. Now, we can look at that, in a way as the same way we looked at the word ghost as it relates to wife. She's the ghost of herself, and the husband is an illusion. Now, what I look at that as when we hear women get on here all day long talking about, I want a man to provide and protect, and I want him to lead me. And it's like, okay, that providing and protecting thing is an illusion. Why do I say that? Because you are your first line of defense. If you're at home and the hubby is at work and somebody break into the house, how is he going to protect you and he's at work? He's at work working these 12-hour shifts so he can provide for you because you want to be a stay-at-home wife and live the soft life so your man can go protect you and provide for you all day, right? Okay, so how he go protect you if you at home and he's at work? That's an illusion. you're your first line of defense. Now, if he's there, obviously, right, he's going to protect you. But how much time are you around this man and throughout your whole daily lives? How long? I mean, how many hours in the day are you around him if he's at work or if you're at work? Y'all both at work. Well, if you at work and some fool come in and want to shoot up the doggone office or whatever, your husband ain't there to protect you. So it's an illusion. It's an illusion until it becomes something that the two of you bring together and say, okay, I'm a husband, you're the wife, I'm going to show up this way, she's going to show up this way, and we are, we're going to bring this together, and like I said, we're going to create something great, right? Then it's no longer an illusion. But the concept that we've been fed and conditioned into of what a husband is an illusion. So the other thing that corresponds with the word husband is control. This is a whole phrase. It says control through harmony. So now let's first deal with the word control. We know that it is within the natural masculine energy to control. That's not a bad thing. Nothing is inherently bad or good. It's all subjective, right? Um so when we get into control through harmony. So when I was looking at that, I was like, okay, control through harmony. Okay, so harmony is when things are working harmonious. It's cohesive. Everyone is operating the relationship itself, the environment, everything is in harmony, right? But if you say that the husband exerts control through harmony. So then let's bring that back to what I was saying, this whole concept of what we've been conditioned into that a husband is an illusion. It is an illusion to think that you can control someone. But you have control over your environment, right? Your physical environment, meaning, you can have your space looking the way you want it, right? You have more control over that. So if we look at the husband, the concept of him being the head of the household, then that's his way of saying, hey, I'm going to have control over this environment and I'm going to make sure that we're all working harmoniously together. So I have to control that, right? But like I said before, to think you can control a whole human is an illusion. So, yes, we want to have control over our lives, right? We want to control, we want to place boundaries so we can decide who's going to show up in our lives and who isn't, right? We're going to, like I mentioned before, we're going to have our space the way we want it. So we don't want people coming in disrupting that. So that is an aspect of control. Um, so I thought that was really interesting when I saw how husband broke down to control through harmony. So I'm going to be able to control the environment by making sure it's working harmoniously. So to a degree, I can get with that, but that should not just be um that's not just for a husband to do. Anyone can do that. Anyone can have a harmonious environment by controlling who they allow in having some control over who's going to enter into their space. So I thought that was really interesting. And what was something else I wanted to say? Oh, again with the beauty thing, right? I looked at that as you know a beautiful man, right? I mean, we all like looking at a man who looks good, right? But that is a part of him, being able to seduce you, right? Because we're visual. We're going to look at this person first and we want to, like what we see, that physical attraction, a beautiful man, right? To me, a beautiful man though is, I mean, obviously I want somebody that's good to look at. I have to be physically attracted to you, but the beauty also has to come through mentally. Can you stimulate my intellect? Right? That's big for me. I can't deal with a man who's like, I can't do it. His mind has to be masterful, right? In order for me to even give him the time of day. So to me, my nose keeps itching. That's where the beauty part comes in. And again, we can always reframe, right? So now we're going to get into the word divorce. Now, that word is condensed all the way down to the number 4. And 4 represents systems, stability, containment. I thought that was interesting. Boxing things in, containment there, boxing and containment. Um, and then we have building. So a lot of times, not a lot of times, all the time, whenever you are once you divorce, you have to rebuild. You have to rebuild your life. And systems. I mean, the divorce is a system. It's a system that is utilized to end a relationship, to end a marriage, right? Yes. And so, but when we look at, I thought the word containment was very interesting because, um, I look at, the first thing I thought was, well, marriage would be containment, though. But the fact that divorce is, corresponds to the word containment, I thought that was very interesting because I was like, okay, how do I interpret that? Like, what would I say about that? And I guess you can look at it as with containment, I guess, still within that construct of marriage, right? Because most divorces get really ugly and, it's hard for a lot of women to, especially if you've been a stay-at-home mom and a wife for years, and then, you know that you are entitled to certain things, and but it's so hard for you to, you know, I mean, it's not an easy process. Basically, divorce is not an easy process. I mean, it's hardly ever amicable, right? So I look at that as being the aspect of the containment part of it. And then when it says box, so again, that takes us back to the containment, or as people say, oh, well, you can't keep me in a box, right? So it's the same as like with divorce. It's like, hey, you can't keep me in this box. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm out, right? So, and then when we look at the other word, stability, well, one of the major things that you have to do once you leave a marriage is you have to have some stability. A lot of times for women, excuse me, if she's used to living a certain lifestyle when she was married, well, now she needs to maintain what she has been accustomed to, right? So, in order to be able to do that, she needs to stabilize herself, right? She needs some stability. Sometimes she can't get it on her own right away, right after the marriage, because maybe she didn't have an income of her own. So now she's working on getting herself stable again, right? Um, and then that takes us back to the rebuilding. It says building, but I say rebuild. You're building your life all over again. A lot of times women got to start from scratch. I had to start from scratch. I'm still, I'm in the building phase. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of times women have to start from scratch. So that could be, especially if he didn't really have any, because again, we go back to a lot of these marriages where a lot of people are coming together and don't really have anything. They don't really grow their finances, but they end up splitting for whatever reason. A lot of times it is financial. That's the other part. A lot of times divorces are because of financial. It's either infidelity or financial, right? And so, yes, you too, huh? Goddess T Marie, you said you too, you starting from scratch. Yeah, child. So, um, yeah, so it's like you got to build your life all over again, you know? And so, I thought this was really interesting. So, and like I said, with certain words that were applied to it, I was like, how can I express that? Or, while I'm doing the live, how can you reframe it? Because again, we love to reframe. I love it. Like that reframing thing, it does something to your subconscious. But yes. So anyway, so yeah, with divorce, box containment, systems, stability, building. These are all things that you deal with when you're in going through a divorce, and even once you get out of it, because a lot of times, um, you know, you're not a lot of times, most times your finances are tremendously affected by divorce. And again, specifically with women, because a lot of women took on the stay-at-home mom and wife role, so they really didn't have an income coming in. So they were completely relying on him and his income. And so once that is disrupted, then, you got to try to find a way to stabilize yourself. So you got to do that by, making money. Like I say, if you stay at home mom, like I was, take all them skills that you acquired being every woman to that man and being a miracle worker to them children, take all of them skills, write it all down, plug it into Chat GPT and be like, what can I do with this? Get Chat GPT to reframe it for you. So I wanted to see, there was the word DNA. That's what this brings me to. So I didn't do the full on deoxyribose nucleic acid. I wasn't breaking all of that down, but I just took the 3 letters of DNA and they break down to the number 10. I mean, well, add it up to the number 10, and then you add 1 plus 1 and 1 plus 0, and you get 1. So 1 in numerology is identity. That's the first one that comes, that's the first word that is associated with with 1 in numerology, identity. So if we look at 1, right? So if we look at, okay, first, if we look at DNA and it adds up to 10, let's just deal with the 10, right? So you got 1 plus 1. So you got the 1 and the 0, or the 0 and the 1, which is the binary code for what they say is what they say. Okay, what is masculine and feminine, right? But 0 represent the womb. The 0 is the void. It's nothing and it's everything, right? And then once you come together with that man, then you create this life. And that's where the 1 starts. That's where the identity starts. Because what's the first way we identify our fetuses, the fetus that we're carrying? We go and find out the sex of the baby. That's their first identification. That's 1, right? So I was thinking about that. And again, I was thinking about how, with the DNA for women, right? Those of us who carry the womb, right? The number 9, the feminine, um, the womb is the void. It's potential, right? It's either potential for an actual soul that you're going to bring here, or it's used to birth other things. Our wombs are not just for bringing babies. We can utilize our womb to manifest other things in our life, right? So we just have to be able to tap into that magic. Most women don't know that. They think the womb is just a pleasure source and to push babies out. But it's so much more than that. So, let me see. I think it was something else. Talking about the void though. Um, Let me see. Oh, you know what? Let me look at some comments. Yeah. Divorce forces. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, that was so interesting to me when I saw that, as far as like what divorce added up to. I know the whole thing was very interesting how it it was so funny because when I was doing this, everything was adding up to what I already kind of knew. Like it made sense to me. And I think that's just because this is something that I like to do. As I said before, I love to get to the root of things and understanding that everything is code. This whole thing is ran by mathematics and codes. And that's why I said even our own bodies, when we get into the mitochondria DNA, right? That's the code for creation. And we carry that as women. We carry the mitochondria DNA. That is an ancient code for creation. So that's why when you look at DNA and first it breaks down to the number 10, which is 1 and 0. Well, 0 is first, 0 is the void. And out of that void, you get that 1, which is that identity, right? So I thought this was so interesting, and I look at it as a way to, if like if you take the numerology of things and you really break it down, it starts to make so much sense. About it makes sense for you, for your life, and even how you navigate through this place, right? You can do the breakdown of your name. Of course, you guys have probably heard about the life path number, but you have your soul urge number. I mean, there's so much more to this. And then when you look at it, it starts to make a lot of sense. But it's so important that you reframe it, because it's real easy to get caught up in, like you could look at a certain word and think it's a bad thing. Um, like again, when we can look at divorce, again, we can look at the box containment, and we automatically think we can at least, if we're not using if we're only looking at it from the conscious point, right? Like I said, or um connotative meanings of words, instead of understanding the denotative, which is the origin, the mother tongue, the mother word, right? When we look at that, that helps us to reframe things. So even if we're looking at the word box or containment, actually, it's okay sometimes to be contained. I mean, we have containers. I have a 4-week container, right? And so it's for women to come in and to be contained so they can do that deep, intensive work. So it's nothing wrong with it. It's all in how you reframe it. And as far as the box, you can say, like, I know for me, I always say you can't place me in a box. But sometimes things need to be placed in a box. Sometimes you got to compartmentalize things, place them in that box until you get to it. Right? It's the same as like your list and things that you have to do. Sometimes you have to just put it like, I'm gonna put this over here in that box. And when I'm ready, I'll get to it. So that's okay. Like I said, it's all about reframing. It's nothing bad or good. That is subjective, right? So I think it's so important that, you can even do, um I was even about to do like the numerology on the state that I got married in. Like what's that about? What's that adding up to? Because everything is cold. When these like crazy events take place, nothing is random. It's not haphazard. It's all based on a numerological and astrological code, right? Your natal chart is a code. It's your blueprint, right? And your name, that's a code. Like nothing is random. When your mother decided to name you, gave you that name for a reason. So it's so important to break that name down and condense it all the way down to that one number, because it'll make so much sense once you do it. You'll be like, oh my God, that's why I tend to do this, or that's why, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, look, it says, yes, my reader asked for all of my dates. She asked for the time I was married. Yeah, because everything is cold. And even time, we say it's an illusion, and it is, but we still have to adhere to it. But when I did the etymology of the word time, one of the words that came up was demon. I was like, wait a second. Didn't Beyonce, I mean, I know that was the first time I had heard it when Beyonce was talking about demon time. I was like, wait a second. The word literally, one of the words is demon. It's spelled like, how does it spell? Dimon. And we know vowels are interchangeable. When we're start getting into etymology and the root of words, demons. Vowels are interchangeable. So yeah, one of the words was demon. I thought that was so wild. Yes. Yes. So I was like, okay, hold on. It's something to this. Right. And this is why it's so important to study numerology and it's so important to study etymology. Like, I can't say this enough because we are operating every day. We are operating consciously. We're operating in the connotative, but subconsciously, we're operating in the denotative. Right. And like I said before, the denotative is the root. That's the mother. That's mama. That's the mother tongue, the original meaning of a word, its origin, when it came into what's the word? Is it lexicon, I believe? Once it came in you know how you look up the word etymology, like the etymology of a word, and it'll say circa uh 16th century or something like that. So that was the first time that the word started being used. Like, that's the origin of it. Like, where did it come from? And so everything is code. Your body is code. Like, your body is coded to heal itself. It's programmed to heal itself. What's a program? It's a code. So its program is coded to heal itself. That's why the DNA, it's a code, right? Everything. It's like when you realize that, you're like, wait a second. Everything is code. Everything. I mean, you could basically break down, like, you could go back and look at past events and you just put the numbers in and you're like, oh, that's why this happened. I was looking in I have this book, what is it? The Kabbalah something, it codes, and I have it sitting right over there. I think, or did it? No, you know what? I think I still have it packed up, but it gives you the numerological breakdown or code of different like, that's how I was able to find out about 9/11 and the meaning behind it. Like, of course, when I was talking about it earlier with the endings, right? And the access and the gate opening, but it was also talking about I think it corresponded with um I want to say death or something like that, which makes sense because the feminine corresponds to the number 9. And as I said before, the feminine is death and rebirth constantly. We're always doing that. Right. So I thought that was so interesting when I looked that up. And that was a long time ago. And I wasn't even really doing numerology like I'm doing now. Like, I've really been going hard on this. And I've been able to gain an understanding of not only myself, but my children, um and the names that they carry, because I was very much specific about what I wanted to name my daughter, and when that happened, like I said, I wasn't even really studying numerology at that time, but I did know that names carry vibration. And because who said that? The most beautiful sound that a person can hear is their name being called, or the sound of their name, or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote. And it's something to that because your name carries a vibration, it carries a code. That's why we love to hear people, like, if you say, I know for me, say if you have your favorite, like, deli spot that you like to go to, right? And every time you walk in there, they say your name. I love that. Every time I go into this deli place, this girl, she's like, "Hi, Kim. Hi, Kim." I'm just like, "Okay." I like that. I like to hear my name called, right? I'm sure we all do. We love that. And so because it's a vibrational code, it's an energy, and it's like it's also a way of saying, like, "Hey, I'm here. Say my name," right? Don't just be it takes you out of just being identified with everybody else. And as one of the things in the occult world that we are very big on is we don't like to call our children's name when we're out in public. Like, I don't like doing that. I don't like calling my daughter's name or my son's name when we're out in public. I don't know. That's some sort of like that's something that's just been handed down for centuries. It's just a thing we don't like to do that. It's the same as um like the indigenous culture here in America, when the colonizers came over and was starting, with because they brought, I think they brought the cameras over. They started taking these pictures and stuff, with the cameras and all that. The first cameras, I guess. I don't know where the first camera came from, but I just know that they did not like to have their picture taken. That was like a big thing in indigenous culture. They did not like to have their pictures taken because they felt like an aspect of their soul would be inside those pictures. Right. And so that goes along with what I say, where I don't like calling my children's name out in public. That's never sat right with me, even before I started getting heavily into the occult. I've never liked doing that. It always felt weird to me. It didn't sit right with me. See, I try my best not to say, oh, I say baby, dear. Yes, exactly. I call my daughter ma'am. I'd be like, ma'am. But yeah, and my son, I call him when and this is like I said, if we're out in the store, like I said, I'll literally call my daughter ma'am. Or I have to be careful with that because sometimes the employees, one of the one of the employees that's working, they think I'm talking to her, right? I'm like, oh no, 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 I'm talking to my daughter. Sir. Yeah, I call my son, I'll be like, sir. So, or dude, like, look at here, dude. Like, I'll do that. But yeah, I don't call their names out in public. I don't like doing that. So, I want to just say, I had a lot of fun with this, and I really hope that you ladies enjoyed it. I hope you got some value out of it. Hopefully, you can take that and use it to your advantage. Keep it on your mind. I know for me now, it's getting to be a thing where it's like, oh, let me go decode that. I start doing that now. So, and it's so, to me, it definitely gives you more insight into who you are and the energy that you carry, and also, like I said, your children, and even like events, like set certain events during certain times. Like my Facebook posts, I'd schedule them out, and I schedule them for a certain time. It's not just picking the time. Like, I'm very intentional in the time that that I would schedule my posts. And so, my nose just keeps itching. So, yeah, but like I said, I really hope that you all enjoyed this and you gained some value from it, and definitely utilize that numerology. You'll start having the same, like, realizations that I'm having. You're gonna be like, oh, wait, that's why this is, and that's why, you'll start to do that. And so you'll find yourself always decoding stuff. I know I do. I do it all the time. Like, literally, y'all, I could be asleep and I'll be thinking about something. I'll be like, oh, wait, let me write this down. What does this mean? And so I'll start doing like the numerology of it. Yes. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, yes, yes. The two of you really be coming through. I got to tell you, I really appreciate y'all coming through for my lives. I got to get more people on these lives, but I really thank you. I'm appreciative. So, let me just put my plug in real quick. I'm getting ready to. This is for everybody. It's for everybody. So, I just have to put this out here. I still have my the beta. I'm getting ready to close it. I'm getting ready to put the price back up to the original price. But basically, it's a 4-week container. It's for women who have left marriages and long-term relationships. And basically, what I help them do is to first of all, take that fear that they have of really starting over, and help them to take that fear and fuel it to propel them forward. It's also to help them to reinstall that inner authority that they've basically gave up within that marriage or that relationship. And because I add the occult to it, it's a witch's brew. So we're going to get into what your cunning is. As I said before, the young lady that I have, we are going to reframe a certain behavior that she was exhibiting that she thought was bad. And I told her, no, that's your cunning. And we about to pull that out. So that is what I do, is getting into dark feminine transformation. And like I said, it's for women who have left marriages and long-term relationships, but they're still just kind of like in that state of flux. And so that's what I do. So thank you, ladies, for coming. And I got some more ideas for some more lives. So I will definitely be back next week. Hopefully this week, if I can. I always got a bunch of stuff going on. So, but anyway, all right, ladies, thank you for coming. And I'm going to end this. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.